The Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Ault. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we present excerpts from Thinkers of the East by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Astrology. A certain respected thinker and teacher had written a book on astrology. Some people said that he must be a magician or insane. Others believed that this action had shown that there was truth in astrology. Ultimately, a dervish who had travelled many miles to see the sage asked him about the problem, saying, "Surely astrological work is inconsistent with the path of the wise and the work of the elect." The sage answered, "I make absolutely sure that all my pupils study my book on astrology. In this way they are able to understand that astrology does not work. When they are completely skilled in the art, I make them interpret horoscopes. These we compare, and we always find such discrepancies in interpretation, when properly tested, that it becomes self-evident that the system is useful only for imaginings." The visitor said, "Could you not simply tell them that astrology is not a true science, as others do?" "Firstly," said the sage, "if the telling had been effective when done by others, who would still believe in astrology? When did telling equal understanding? Secondly, when you have thoroughly investigated one superstition, you are unlikely to be able to sustain or adopt another." "So it is not astrology in particular which you seek to dispose of?" "No. Astrology is one of the easiest absurdities to study, because its practitioners have allowed themselves to be pinned down to rules." I'll make you remember. One day, Latif the Thief ambushed the commander of the royal guard, captured him, and took him to a cave. "I'm going to say something that no matter how much you try, you'll be unable to forget," he told the infuriated officer. Latif made his prisoner take off all his clothes. Then he tied him, facing backwards, on a donkey. "You may be able to make a fool of me," screamed the soldier, "but you'll never make me think of something if I want to keep it out of my mind." "You have not yet heard the phrase which I want you to remember," said Latif. "I'm turning you loose now for the donkey to take back to town. And the phrase is, 'I'll catch and kill Latif the Thief if it takes me the rest of my life.'" The next generation. There was once a philosopher who insisted on his rights when ownership of a certain well was disputed. He was adamant about his proprietorship, too, of a clump of palm trees. In a third case, he became notorious for insisting that he was the sole owner of a certain rectangular house. He won all these cases, but people said to him, "How could a man of detachment place such value upon transitory objects such as these?" He said, "The question asked from suspicion and hostility has driven its answer into the next generation." Nobody could understand this, and they therefore imagined that he was deliberately trying to confuse. In the next generation, however, deceitful advisers trying to usurp the property of a devout miner said to him, "Yield your property to us, for you are a pious man. Things of this world are of no account." "What is my property?" he asked them. "A long house, some palm trees, and a well," they said. "Then I will abide by the precedent of the wise. Look up the writings and doings of such and such an acknowledged sage," he said, and gave the name and quoted the collection which were recorded the actions of the philosopher. If he looks good, he is good. A man went to Imam Zainul Abidin and said, "I recognize you as my leader and teacher, and I beg to be allowed to learn from you." The Imam asked, "Why do you believe that I am a leader and a teacher?" The newcomer answered, "I have searched all my life, and I have never found anyone with such a reputation for kindness and warmth and goodly appearance." The Imam wept and said, "Dear friend, how frail a thing is man, and in what danger! The very reputation and actions you attribute to me are shared with some of the worst people in the world. If all men judge only on appearances, every devil will be thought a saint, and every superior man could be made out to be an enemy of humanity." Ruling and ruled. A dervish was asked, "Which is better, to be a ruler or to be ruled?" He said, "To be ruled. The person being ruled is constantly informed by the ruler that he is wrong, whether he is or not. This gives him a chance to improve by studying himself, for sometimes he is indeed wrong. The administrator, however, almost always imagines that he himself or his regulations are right, so he has little opportunity to examine his behavior. That is why the ruled eventually become rulers, and rulers fall to the status of the ruled." He was asked, "Then what is the purpose of the promotion of the ruled and the downfall of the ruler, just repeated again and again?" He said, "So that rulers may learn what ruling really entails, and the ruled may learn how good, as well as how bad, they really are." "But," said the questioner, "how can a man have a chance to benefit from this if it takes generations for the ruler to become the ruled, and the ruled the ruler?" "It does not take generations. It happens many times in every man and woman's life. The development which you see throughout the generations is simply an illustration of this." Hariri, the good man. Hariri always tried to behave in as exemplary a manner as possible. He acquired such a reputation for correct conduct that a certain merchant who had to go on a journey chose him as the obvious person with whom to entrust the welfare of his beautiful slave girl. But Hariri developed a passion for the girl. He went to Haddad, his Sufi preceptor, and asked for his advice. Haddad said, "Go to Yusuf, son of Hussein." When Hariri approached the place where Yusuf was to be found, people said, "Do not go near the son of Hussein, pious man, for he has a bad reputation, is a heretic and a wine drinker." Not believing this, Hariri arrived at Yusuf's door, where he saw, sure enough, Yusuf was sitting with a young boy and a flask of wine. Hariri at once said to Yusuf, "What is the meaning of this behavior?" Yusuf said, reading his thoughts, "I behave like this in appearance because it prevents people entrusting their beautiful slaves to my keeping." Hamlet. A very forthright and extremely intelligent man, using the dervish name of Fakir Hamlet, arrived in Samarkand. Hamlet means, in English, the type of woolen cloth formerly known as camlet. As was the custom, he addressed the public in the Friday market on all manner of subjects. He rapidly acquired a reputation as a learned man, and several of the long-established scholars of the city went to visit him in the humble caravanserai where he lived. One said, "We would like to know the school of thought to which you belong and the name of your teacher." He said, "I belong to the Asmania school, and my teacher is none other than Fakih Kaukab, son of El-Utarid, of the Falak, the elevated noble." The scholars had never heard of this celebrated man, but could discern from his name that he was a lawyer, probably a jurisconsult, and had certainly been ennobled. They said, "Though the reputation of the lawyer Kaukab is not entirely unknown in this remote place, yet his books and disciples have not yet reached us in great numbers. So we applaud your devotion to his name, and your modesty in acknowledging your teacher, not coming here pretending that you alone are master of your thoughts." So Fakir Hamlet was accepted on this intellectual pedigree. Some years afterwards, however, a traveller arrived in Samarkand from Yemen, saying, "I seek Fakir Kaukab, son of El-Utarid of the Falak. Has anyone seen him in Samarkand? He is the greatest of our teachers, and sometimes calls himself Hamlet, and comes from a place called Azman." Respect. El-Amudi allowed the kitchen boy to receive his guests. The water pots in the guest house were often empty. When distinguished visitors came to the house, the sage seldom talked to them on any serious subject at first. Once, he had all the robes worn by a group of prominent clerics sprayed with muddy water. Some showed a taste for this conduct, and El-Amudi used to send such people away as soon as possible. Others often said, "We have never been treated with such disrespect." El-Amudi used to say to such people, "You failed to inform me that you came for respect. I have never offered it, since I have been too deeply occupied in offering knowledge. Respect, you will have to learn, is available from every shopkeeper and everyone who has expectations from you." The Legend of the Three Men. Once upon a time there were 3 men who went on a journey together. They came upon a small coin by the roadside. As they had no other money, each started to argue with the others as to what they should buy with it. The first man said, "I want something sweet to eat." "No," said the second, "I want several sweet things to eat." "No," said the third, "I want something to quench my thirst." A wise man passing by stopped, and they asked him to adjudicate between them. "Choose," they said, "which of us should have his desire." "I will do better than that," said the sage, "for I can undertake to satisfy you all." He went to a nearby shop, and with the money bought a bunch of grapes, which he divided between them. "But this is something sweet to eat," said the first. "But this is several sweet things to eat," said the second man. "But this is something with which to quench my thirst," said the third man. This podcast is copyright 2016, the Idries Shah Foundation.